All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I want to say welcome, everybody. This is the Mylio Photos Coffee Break. My name is Angela Andrieux. I'm a product evangelist for Mylio Photos. And what that means is I work with our marketing and support departments to help make everyone successful. I do a lot of education. I write the manual. So if you have questions about the manual, I'm the person to talk to. And if there's things that you'd like to learn more about, I write a lot of our tutorials and do a lot of our videos too. So if you have questions about those things, the best way to reach me is via our community. So if you haven't been there yet, that's community.mylio.com. Highly recommend joining. It's a lot of fun. But today we're going to be talking about one of the new features in Mylio Photos 22.1, and that is our new quick review mode. What this allows you to do is go through your images very quickly on any of your devices and flag the ones that are pics and the ones that are rejects. You can also add star ratings here too, depending on how granular you want to get. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll talk about this a little bit. So with pick and reject flags are also new to Mylio Photos 22.1. And the two flags, the way I look at them is pics are images on my first pass through in Culling that I want to do something more with, whether that's to share it, to edit it. I want to come back and take a look at it again. Then there's going to be those images that are blurry. Maybe I accidentally pressed the shutter while my camera was pointing at the ground. Maybe the bird that I was photographing was, flying the wrong direction. No matter what, those are the ones that I want to flag as rejects to most likely get rid of. Now, when you add something as or flag something as a reject in Mylio Photos, what it does is it grays it out. And you also have the option to hide those. So if you want to hide your rejected photos, which can kind of clean up the look of your library without the commitment of deleting things, you can go up to the More menu and choose Show or Hide Rejected Photos. It's right here at the top. You can just uncheck that, and that is going to either show or hide those photos. So I'm going to go ahead and keep that on for now. And when I flag something as a reject, it's just going to gray it out. So I know that's one that I probably want to get rid of. Once I've gone through and determined images that are rejects, I can easily delete those to free up space. But that's another choice you can make a little bit down the line. Reject is kind of like a soft, I probably don't want to keep this, but I don't want to delete it just yet. So let's take a look at this here on the desktop first. I have also my iPad and my iPhone because this mode actually works really, really well on mobile. But the way to use this on desktop is you just go up to that More menu and you choose Quick Review. And this enters you into a mode where it frees up a little bit of desktop real estate and gives you a look really focused in on your images. So up at the top, you have your photo. You have a little toolbar here along the bottom. The X exits the Quick Review mode. You have your reject and pick flags. You have star ratings, and you have a little help button here. Down at the bottom, you have your film strip, and since I was in all photos, this is my all photos view. You can enter this mode from any view, from an album, from a folder, from a date on the calendar, and you can go through images however you have them grouped at the moment you're looking at them. So right now, like I said, I'm in all photos, and I want to go ahead and start on this first image in the string. So I went out to lunch today with a friend, and I had this delicious matcha tea latte. And as you can see, I took 5 different shots. Do I need 5 different shots? No, I probably don't. So let's take a look at them and figure out which ones we want to keep. While doing this on the desktop, we don't have gestures most likely because that's really for using it on a touchscreen device. But if you're on a computer, you have keyboard shortcuts, and I love keyboard shortcuts. If you've ever used Lightroom, you have similar shortcuts here that you do there. So a pick flag is going to be a P for pick, and a reject flag is going to be an X, like X it out, don't want to see it, probably trash. So we can move through our images just as fast with flags on the desktop. If you want to do star ratings, you can just type in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 to add the star rating. And if you don't like what you rated something, you can just click back on it here in the film strip, or use your arrow keys to move through things that you might not want to do anything with right now. So let's start with this first one. Out of all of these images, this is my favorite. So I'm definitely going to click this as a pick. And I also want to flag that one as a 5-star. So I'm actually going to just click back in the film strip there, tap 5. And now you can see on the annotation here on picture, I have a 5-star and I have a pick flag. And it has jumped me forward to the next picture. This is a pretty good picture, not really quite as interesting as this one. So I'm going to leave that alone for now, and I'm going to hit the arrow key to go to the next one. Nice different view. And then I have a couple of others that are really similar. And those two I don't think are as good. So I'm going to actually mark those as rejects. So I'm going to hit the X key on the keyboard, and you'll see that that applied the X, the reject flag here. And on this one, I'm going to also hit that reject flag. So now out of these 5 images, I've determined that there is one that I really like, 2 that are okay, I don't want to really do anything with, but I don't want to get rid of them, and then 2 that can just, they can go away. So what I can do at that point is I can hit the escape key, or I can hit the X right here in the toolbar. I like keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to hit escape, and that takes me back to the regular Mylio view. And if I want to get rid of these rejected photos, all I have to do is go up to organize and choose delete rejected photos. Now the caveat to pay attention to here is this is going to delete all of the rejected photos in the view that you're currently in. So right now I'm in all photos. There might be a lot of pictures in here that I've marked as rejects that I'm not ready to delete. So I'm not going to do that from here, but if you want to ever take a look and see what you've rejected in a current group, I encourage you to go up to the filters, go over to flags and choose reject. And then we're going to go ahead and click the back button to see this in a grid. And you can see there's quite a few that I've rejected. Probably most of these can go in the trash, but I'm not ready to throw them away right now because there's so many of them. So I'm going to leave it alone. And instead of deleting them, maybe I just want to hide them from my library. So I'm going to turn off my filter and go back here to the top level. Let me just scroll back up to the top. And instead of having them grayed out like so, I don't really want to look at them. So I'm going to hit that more menu and turn off show rejected photos. And that's going to hide all of those rejected photos from my library. Now this doesn't delete them. They are still there. I can turn that back on and see them at any time. But this does not free up this doesn't free up hard drive space like deleting them does. But it is a very low risk, actually no risk action to where you can just clean up the look of your library without making any long-term commitments. So are there any questions on that so far? All right. Well, let me jump over then to my iPhone and I'll show you where the magic of QuickReview really happens. So give me a second to get this pulled up for you. One moment. And get to a folder that I want to share. And we're going to look at a folder of images that I took on the beach. Let's see, there it is. And go up here to share this. And this should pop up on the screen here in just a second. All right. So here we go. We're looking at my iPad screen right now. Let me go ahead and minimize Mylio so you get a better view of what's going on my screen. You can see there's a bunch of images. Many of them are similar, and probably a good deal of these aren't really worth keeping. So I want to use that same quick review mode on my mobile device. So I'm going to again hit that more menu in the upper right corner and go down to quick review. And it brings us back to this very minimalistic view where we can really focus in on these images. Now, these first 2 were a couple of screenshots that I did for a tutorial a while back. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark. Actually, what I just did is something that you might want to be aware of. So I'm going to scroll back here. You'll notice that these got rejected, and that's because I was using those gestures, not scrolling on the scroll bar here. And that just got small. I'm not sure why. Let me make that bigger. There we go. So I'm going to actually just undo that, undo both of those. And then you can scroll by moving your finger back and forth on that film strip at the bottom. If you swipe on the picture itself, like I did before, you're actually going to be adding flags and ratings. These are not permanent. You can undo them like I just showed you, but it's good to know that those gestures are what control those ratings in this mode. So now we're on this first one. I can scroll in and say, you know what, that's not that great of a picture. It's not terribly interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unmark that one as a 4-star. And I'm going to swipe to the left to leave it behind. So think left, leave it behind, and that marks it as a reject. This is a very similar photo. Again, not terribly interesting. I'm going to mark that again as a reject. Now let's take a look at some of these other images. And you can always turn your phone horizontally if you're looking at horizontal images. Sometimes that makes it easier. And while this isn't a terrible photo, it's not also very interesting. So again, swipe to the left, maybe swipe to the left. All right, this is getting interesting. Maybe he's going to fall. I wouldn't say this is necessarily one that I need to come back and edit, but it's a little bit more interesting. And this one, he's got his arm up, not great. I'm going to go ahead and reject that. He's starting to get kind of swallowed up there by the water. I'm going to reject. And I can go ahead and quickly move through these, and I'm just swiping left on the screen, and that's marking these as rejects. Again, kind of an interesting picture if you're looking at it from a documentary perspective. Look at all the surfers out in the water. But you know what? I can go to Pismo Beach anytime and see all the surfers in the water, so I'm going to reject that one as well. All right, so this one's not too bad. But again, it's not one I want to pick or do anything with, so I'm just going to tap on the next one in the film strip. This one is not as good as the previous one. You can see there's the one that I just skipped. This one, he's facing away from the camera. So again, we're going to swipe left on this. And I'm just going to quickly move through some of these to see if I can find some better shots. Now, this one's pretty interesting. The surfer's actually looking right at me. This one, it's got some good body movement, but he's kind of hidden in the surf. So I'm going to go ahead and reject that one. This is a good one. This one is one I actually edited. So here's the original. You can see I did a little bit of Photoshop magic there and took the surfer out of the foreground, but that's actually a pretty cool picture. And that's the original, so I'm going to leave that alone. And here he went ahead and bit the dust. So I'm going to go ahead and reject that. And somebody else about to fall into the surf. And now this one, this is an interesting series. This is a father and a son that were out there surfing together. And I really like their interaction, but trying to get both of them in the frame was a little bit difficult. So I have a lot of shots that are almost there, but they're not quite. So this one's not very interesting. One subject is already going off the left of the screen. The other one's not facing me. So I'm going to reject that. It's a little bit better, but still not great. This one's pretty good. The expression on the kid is good. The board is fully in the frame. The dad isn't looking my direction. So I wouldn't necessarily say this one's a pick, but I'm not going to delete it. This one, I really like the gesture on the kid, but he's partially off the screen. I'm going to keep that. I don't want to throw it out, but I probably won't ever do anything with it. All right, here's another one. You can see that there's a lot here that I took. Oh no, we're getting somewhere. This is a better one. I might flag that one as a pick. And now here's dad and son. They've got their wave together. That one's actually pretty cool. I'll also flag that one as a pick. And maybe that one as well. This one's even better. If you zoom in and look, take a look at the expression on the kid's face. He's having a blast. This is one that I think I'm going to go ahead and do a star rating on. And much like I'm swiping left or right to do my flags, I can swipe up or down to add stars. So I'm going to go ahead and move my finger. Actually, I'm going to zoom back out. Yep. Accidentally flagged that one. So you can just go back. If you do something wrong, you can just go back in that film strip, fix it up real quick, and go back here. Where was that one? There he was. And I'm going to use my finger to move up and down. You'll see that I'm moving those stars up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a 4-star. That's pretty good. This one's kind of cool, the interaction between the two of them. I'm going to keep it, but it's not as interesting. Same goes for this one. This one's not as interesting. I'm going to go ahead and reject. And then one of the subjects is completely off the frame on the left. Reject, reject. And I'll keep that one. I'll keep that one. All right, and then I moved on to photographing some other things down the pier. So this is how it works when you're doing it on an iPhone or an Android phone, exactly the same. And when you're ready to finish up a session, you can just hit the X there on the that little toolbar, and it takes you back to your main screen. And now you can see in this display, I have a bunch of images that are grayed out. If I want to get rid of these, I can go down to the actions menu in the lower right, and I can say delete rejected photos. It's there under the photo section. Gotta get my mouse up here. You can see it right there. And I could go ahead and delete these images. Why don't I go ahead and do that now? And we'll see if I save a little bit of hard drive space. So we're going to go ahead and delete rejected images. It's going to ask me, do I really want to do this? This is a permanent action, so I'll say delete. And that physically cleans up my hard drive, not only on my phone, but that's going to remove those images that I marked as rejects from my entire system. So that's freeing up hard drive space on my main drives at home and on my computer, which is an awesome thing because those are pictures I'm never going to do anything with. So are there any questions on working with this on mobile device? All right.
Angela, when you do those ratings,
Mhm.
Do they carry over into other programs? Are they on a sidecar file?
So your flags and your stars will get saved to XMP files, and that's industry standard metadata. And most applications that can read stars and flags will be able to see those. Now, there is one caveat. Lightroom reads flags differently. So if you've noticed, if you are a Lightroom user, flags that you added in Lightroom aren't going to come over to Mylio. And that's because Lightroom is using a non-standard use there. Mylio is using the standard use. So most applications that support those types of rating and tagging will be able to see these ratings. Any other questions? It's a good one. All right, stop mirroring on that. And let me pull up my iPad, because while it's very similar, it's a little bit different on iPad. It's somewhere between what you see on your desktop machines and what you see on an iPhone. You just have a bit more real estate. So let me go ahead and share my screen over here. Get that loaded up. Almost there. It's just thinking. There we go. All right. So I have yet another folder here that has a bunch of similar images that probably need to be cleaned up, and I can go through them and find the ones that are just not that interesting. I was out on a walk out in Point Loma. It's a neighborhood here in San Diego. Beautiful place, has this nice path along the water in amongst houses. So it's between houses and the water. So you get a great view of not only these magnificent houses, but of all the boats and the birds and everything else. So I'm going to, again, touch that More menu in the upper right corner and go to Quick Review. And again, we can see that same layout that we saw on the computer and that we saw on the phone. And the thing is, here with a tablet, you also have those gestures. So I can swipe to the right to mark one as a pick. I can swipe to the left to leave it behind, mark it as a reject. I can scroll up and down to mark a star rating, or I can just simply move between pictures by tapping on them in the film strip to see what I want to keep. So let's take a look here at these two. Very similar photos. I think this one's maybe slightly better. It's just not as crooked. So I'm going to go to the next one, and I'm going to swipe that to the left to mark it as a reject. Now, this one I can tell if I zoom in, there's a great blue heron over there I was trying to photograph, but he's walking away. That's not that interesting. So I'm going to swipe to the left on that one to hide it. And again, here's another one. He's walking away. All right, this one's a little bit more interesting. It's a little far away. So I'm not sure I call this a pick, but I'm going to go ahead and just move down the line here. And you can see I have 3 different images here that are nearly identical. Now I could go through and cull them here, or later on I could go into declutter. And because this is a burst mode, so you can see they're all very similar. They were probably taken within like a fraction of a second of each other, just sitting there holding on the shutter. I could clean them up in declutter, or I can clean them up here. It's really a personal preference which tool you use. Both of them are great. They just work slightly differently. So I'm going to take a quick look here at the sharpness. Now I can zoom in and take a look. Okay, he's pretty sharp. And zoom in on this one. Also pretty sharp. And also pretty sharp. So really they're all nearly identical. So those second two, I'm just going to go ahead and swipe to the left and get rid of those. This one, again, he's walking away from me, kind of annoyed that I'm interrupting his lunch. So I'm going to swipe left on that, swipe left on that. Now this one's getting interesting. All right, I'm starting to be able to see a little bit of detail on him. I can see his eye. I think I'm going to keep that one. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom out and swipe to the right. Oops, I'm back here. Swipe to the right to mark that one as a flag. And again, this one, he's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and skip that one. And I'm just going to move forward here in my film strip and take a look at what I've got going on, because these are all, again, very similar. Now, depending on your subject, this is where doing this process on a computer might come in handy. When you're at the computer, most likely you have your originals on an external drive hooked up to your computer, so you can zoom in and get a finer view if you're really trying to evaluate the details. Otherwise, you can just pinch and zoom here on the computer. Right now, I'm looking at most likely the smart previews that are on this device. It's still a very high quality image, but if I want to zoom in really close and get that most accurate view of the detail, sometimes making sure you have the original quality available can make this process a little bit better. So I can go through those. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead now, go to the next series. Again, you can see that these are all very similar, and I was shooting in burst mode. So those are things that I can clean up with declutter later. But there's a lot of different ways that you can use Quick Review to find your best images and get rid of the ones that are not that great. So in instances like these, I'm kind of looking at the gesture of the bird. Now here's where things get good. You can see the lighting is much better on him. I can actually see his eye. There's great detail. So this one, actually, I'm going to go ahead and for sure mark this one as a pick. So you can go through and move through images very quickly, just using those gestures on the screen, or you can use the icons in the toolbar, whatever works for you. Or if you're at your computer, you can do that from your computer and make use of those keyboard shortcuts. The keyboard shortcuts really speed things up. And once you're used to them, once they're just kind of ingrained, you're gonna wish you had started using them sooner. Sometimes it takes a little bit of memorization work to go, okay, wait, which key was that? But it's super powerful. And I think you're gonna really like it if you're not using them already. Now, if you haven't used keyboard shortcuts before, we do have them listed in the manual. So if you go to our website, let me go ahead and pull up a browser window here real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my iPad, get that out of the way. All right, so I'm going to go to manual.mylio.com. And if you're looking for the keyboard shortcuts, it's going to be here in the user interface section. And we have mobile, iOS and iPad keyboard shortcuts. So if you have a keyboard attached to your iPhone or your iPad, we have keyboard shortcuts here. But the ones on the computer is probably the ones you're going to use the most. And this has everything listed here, and there's a ton. So kind of think about the actions that you do often, and then take a look if there's a corresponding keyboard shortcut that can make your life easier. The other thing you're going to want to take a look at with regard to today's topic with Quick Review is the managing your photos section. So I'm going to scroll down here to, here we go, culling with Quick Review mode. So this is actually under organizing with metadata and culling with Quick Review. And this will walk you through how to use this on a mobile device and on a computer. So if I went too fast with something today or something didn't quite make sense, this is where you'd want to go to get more information. So that pretty much closes up what I had for you today. It's kind of a quick and intense on this one tool, because I think it's very powerful and very, very useful. Do you guys have any questions before we wrap up for today?
When you're swiping on the photograph to pick it, you swipe on the displayed photograph, and when you want to move to the next one, you swipe on the film strip.
Correct.
Got it.
Yep. Now that does take a little bit of getting used to, and you saw me doing it, I'm sure, during this live demo, that sometimes I forget and I try to swipe to the next one just on the picture, because we're kind of ingrained to do that. The technology has taught us to flick to the next picture. When you're in Quick Review mode, that adds a rating. So swiping to the left will add that reject flag. Swiping to the right adds that pick flag. And again, if you do that by accident, you can always touch back in the film strip on that image and undo whatever rating. Because until you're used to it, it's going to happen.
So did the cat get in the tree?
He's trying. So I left those there just because he's pretty funny. So I took a couple of pictures of him the other night and shared this one actually in our community and asked the question, is he just admiring the tree or is he plotting to take it down? And the consensus was he's plotting, definitely plotting. And then last night I was sitting there watching TV and he was being so naughty. And yes, he did end up the tree. So let me go ahead and do this live video. He was trying to climb into the tree. So yeah, that's a little peek into what I deal with.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He's fun. It's a good thing he's cute. Are there any other Mylio questions today? All right. Well, I want to wish you guys a great rest of the afternoon.